Our next guest on the Any Given Runday podcast is the Senior Physiotherapist and Clinical Lead of Running Solutions at Premier Physiotherapy in Valencia. He's also a runner turned triathlete with PB of 2:41 marathon and also has an Ironman under his belt. Enda Kilgallon, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. How are you getting on?
I'm good, lads. Thanks for having me on.
Not a bad old track record you have there, Enda. You were sneaking them times in. Have you been running long, or how did you get into sport? Or are you going to say that was your first marathon?
Not quite that good. Took a bit of work to get there. As you probably know yourselves, like growing up in the 90s and 2000s in the school in Ireland, athletics wasn't really much of a thing. So it was all just GA really when I was younger. But I was always the guy that wing back, wing forward, just carrying the ball up the pitch without really much skill. So I had the fitness there from that. I actually went to university in the UK over in Newcastle. There's probably a separate podcast we could do all on that by itself.
It depends if it's good or bad. If it's juicy, we'll go now.
And you probably know about it, but the Great North Run, it's not that popular over here, but I think like runners like yourself probably know of it. But it's really like the only show in town in Newcastle from July to September. Everybody's either training for it or their family are doing it. It's a big day out. I was there 4 or 5 years. Every year was kind of like, could be my last year here. So like, I'll just have to get a place at some point. So I did what you probably shouldn't do and bought a place the week before of someone who was selling it. No training at all, apart from a few park runs in that summer. Really, that was it. And just playing some football as well. And I was like, no idea about times here. I'll go out and try and run a 1:45. That sounded respectable. And then just got there, great day, sunshine, crowds. There was like 50,000 people. It's a bit like Dublin Marathon. There's like 3 or 4 deep everywhere on the course. It's unbelievable experience.
It is a half marathon, am I right?
Half,
I
yeah.
have the right. Yeah.
And then just basically started running. It was a bit of a Forrest Gump thing. Just kept running. Definitely didn't stick to the pace plan. And probably what I should be saying now is like mile 9, mile 10, I just blew up. But didn't happen, kept going, finished strong, ended up doing it at 1:33. And
Wow.
I got quite good at this here. So that kind of kick-started it then.
And 1:33 is impressive. And especially, well, I suppose there's one thing, there's lessons to be learned from blowing up. There's also a scary lesson to be learned from not blowing up. So what lesson did you learn from that, okay, where can we go from here? And what was your next steps after that?
Pretty much, yeah. It was just like I knew that was a good time because there wasn't too many people finished before me. So, and then funny enough, I did it the next year. I got a 1:30 and it's better, but it didn't give me the same kind of satisfaction at all because you're almost expecting it then, whereas the first one was just completely out of the blue. And you probably struggle to ever get that kind of feeling again unless you take like a massive chunk off a time where you really surprise yourself. At that point, I'd kind of given up on the football, so I was like, well, I'll just go all in on running here now.
Question we ask people a lot of time, and particularly given your background, and you're probably in a similar boat, maybe I'm repeating myself again, the transition from team sports into a very individual sport like running. How was that for you?
I loved it, to be honest. There was no set schedule of you have to train at any point. I could just get up and do morning runs, evening runs, whenever I wanted to, really. I've never had a problem with just getting myself motivated to go out and train. If anything, it's probably the opposite way, maybe overdoing things. So I didn't really need that team environment.
And at this stage, like you said there at the start there, athletics wasn't really a thing. Like I know when me and Eric got into running, we didn't know what a running plan was. It was just run hard as often as you could every time. Was this the same for you? When you started, you got that, what you did worked, you got a 1:33. So you're like, right, just keep running as hard as I can every time, or where you started looking at things, or how did that work for you?
I was probably lucky enough that I was already qualified physio at that point, and we'd done things like exercise physiology modules as part of that. So I had a bit of an understanding of training zones, heart rate zones, and I'd had like even just a personal interest in that anyway. So I was probably lucky that I didn't get into I was probably still running a bit too hard too often, which is where some injuries came in, but I wasn't doing the classic go out and trying to beat your 5K time every time I went out. So I was kind of quite able to kind of create training plans that were maybe polarized, or at least had a little bit of a split in them.
I have a different question here. How does a physio treat themselves? Did you give yourself a load of glute bridges and tell yourself to go on out there and try it again?
With great difficulty sometimes, and we're own enemy as well.
Well, how do you as in, because you know the theories, you know what you do, and then as you say, it's motivated because you go to the physio and they they do the right things, they do everything, and then they scold you, and then you feel guilty. So you do the exercises so that when you go back there, they're proud of you, and you move on until the next time. How do you do it with yourself?
Yeah, well, there's nobody telling me off, but you have to be you're accountable to yourself then, I suppose. And we still do pick up injuries as well. So sometimes you need a bit of a, you'll have to have a chat with a colleague or something just to clarify what kind of injury you've got as well. It's funny how when it's yourself, you can be less rational and talk yourself out of things or into things, and good in some ways, but also you can kind of worry yourself that you've got maybe more serious injury than it is at times.
And then when you're talking to someone, a runner, on a scale of 1 to 10, and you get to the stage in the end, you treat them and all the rest, and you give them the exercise, and you say, no, just do that and ease back in. Like, how much of a glazed over look and you realize you're just talking to a wall with these people is happening here? Is it as obvious as people going, nah, they're not doing that, they're going straight back out again? Like, what are these common errors you're seeing?
Yeah, like without making assumptions on everybody, you can kind of get a sense if someone's going to follow a plan or how rigidly they're going to follow it. And they don't even need to do it 100%, but it's like going to hit it 80, 90%. But there's someone, people walking out the door, they're going to follow it, maybe 10, 20%. Sometimes you have to let people make their own mistakes as well. They might come back, hopefully.
You're making more money off them then. But you did the right thing.
And what brought you down the road of physiotherapy? Obviously, always interested in sport. And then another question, why Newcastle?
Well, probably the sport thing played a bit of a role there as well with the Geordies. But kind of from the physiotherapy side of things, it was typically sport, seeing someone run on with a magic sponge. But then that kind of reality hit afterwards once I qualified, and it was working kind of hospital-based, and it was much different from what I expected. So it's kind of a long way around to actually working in an area now which is more musculoskeletal and deal with runners day in, day out, which you asked me 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have went down a running speciality, but it kind of, it's quite a natural fit now. Your hobby matches your work. So I got to spend most of my day chatting to people about gels, running shoes, training plans. If I wasn't talking about it in work, I'd be looking it up myself. So it's quite easy in that sense.
And I do want to pick your brain and all this kind of stuff, but this 2:41 marathon, how did that come about?
That was Dublin last year. So I had done Dublin the year before. I think it was maybe 2:47. That was just off the back. No, that was the year before the Ironman. Sorry. It would probably come on to triathlon in a little bit maybe, but I definitely think doing a big kind of Ironman build from basically October to June, I might not have been running that much, or relatively speaking, but it was, instead of doing like 5-6 hours running a week, you're getting 13, 15 hours of aerobic exercise a week. So all that was like just a massive solid base. And then kind of post Ironman recover, then did August to October, just purely focused on the running. And that was just like sharpening the knife really at that stage.
There is something to that, isn't it, about training, getting Ironman training, and Eric's always telling me to go swimming and stuff. I think it's because he knows I can't swim. But
the only time I can beat you, it's like me racing a shark on a bike.
But it is getting I'm struggling now trying to get me volume up right, but it is trying to increase your, like with the Ironman stuff, getting on the bike, you're not constantly getting that impact on the running, but you are increasing your aerobic capacity. And then when it comes to sharpening the last 12 weeks or so and getting more running, you do seem to have more of a build. There must be something to that. Yeah,
definitely, like from both kind of the science behind it and then personal experience, I could definitely say there is something to that. Like I was trying to talk to people, particularly if they're a bit lower volume runner or they're new to it or they're getting injured. Don't think of yourself as I'm running X amount of miles per week. Think of it in time of aerobic exercise. You might be a 10-hour aerobic exerciser rather than just a 40k runner or something. I don't even have Ironman volume. It can just be like an extra couple of bikes and swims per week.
For someone listening now, that is what, 10 weeks, depending this podcast goes out away from the Dublin Marathon. Would you recommend cycling, swimming, different aerobic stuff in, or is it you need to just get the running? At this stage now, 10 weeks out, is it just you need to get the running down? Like, would you program something like that or different aerobic exercises?
Probably at the minute, if someone's running well and they've got a bit of a base and they're in a good training phase, I wouldn't really introduce it unless they're starting to get maybe a little bit niggly, they're on the verge of something, then just cut a run at a bike. But if they're thinking about maybe longer term, you're kind of 6 to 9 months out, or even a bit closer, 3 to 6 months out from a marathon, then definitely like big bike sessions, pool sessions, cross trainer. You're not going to get injured in those things. So it's just a really good kind of stimulus. But probably at this stage, it's maybe getting a bit close unless you really had to be a bit crafty with managing the load on them.
and getting back to your PB before we pick your brain on the physio stuff and what we're all doing wrong in terms of running gaits and everything else. We had a few conversations with people on the back end of last week's episode. We had Will Buzz in the podcast, and he was talking to people about he was supposed to do either Dublin, I think Valencia was the other one, and he was like, oh, Valencia, flat PB, you know, go for that. People tell me, like, no, I want to get me a hometown one. And I got a few messages afterwards, but going, I'm conflicted because I understand that they, after listening, they want to get Dublin because Dublin, the crowds and stuff at the end, and getting a PB there means so much more. And then my question is because you've got a PB in Dublin now with the hills and stuff like that Dublin provides. I know one or two listeners are going, what hills, Seán? But there's hills in Dublin. Is your thoughts on that's a PB race? Because we've had like Mick Fox in the podcast weeks ago talk about rolling hills and stuff. He likes that. What's your personal preference on it?
Yeah, on paper, you wouldn't say Dublin was a PB course. And particularly like last year, I just look at the draw in terms of the weather as well. There was no wind. It was perfect conditions. So that plays into it. But even a course like that, if it's a little bit rolling, you can work the downhills. Something like Valencia, which I've done as well, and a few other flat ones. It's just monotonous pace. You're running 2.5, 3 hours at the same cadence, the same turnover all the time. As opposed to you get a little bit of a difference in Dublin. You're going uphill, you shorten your strides, you're going downhill, you get to speed up again. So I think there probably is a lot to be said for that, all right? As long as you do get a little bit of hill trick, like it doesn't have to be massive hills, but you need to kind of incorporate that into your training as well.
Hill sprints, in terms of, I know we're probably skipping ahead, a lot of people say they are the pinnacle of stuff you can be doing in training, hill sprints. They like even tacking them on the back of workouts. I've seen a lot of people online saying they're the unsung hero of building pace and building speed and building everything. What is your thought process on hill sprints?
They're good for a couple of things. So definitely from like building some strength. It's almost a little bit of a way of maybe tricking a runner into doing some strength training because nobody wants to hit the gym.
We definitely need that anyway, that's for certain.
Yeah. It's not probably quite as good, but it's better than nothing. And then it's really good for like adding a bit of intensity without speed. So like you're not going to be hitting your kind of top end speed going uphill, but you're going to feel like it. So again, we might talk about this later, but like learning to work off feel and like RPE rather than just pace. So they're definitely a good way to add that in. And also you don't need to do as much of it to get the same stimulus. So again, maybe come back from an injury. It's a good way just to start people off for new runners as well. I'd rather send someone out for like 10 by 30 seconds hill, maybe efforts rather than sprints, than getting them to do like 200s on a track or something.
It's mad to say. I just did pretty much that similar session. Well, no, not exact same session. I stopped after 6 30-second sprints. I was done for. But I know what you mean by RPE instead of speed, because speed wasn't that much faster than I do for like a 400 meter on the flat, but I was just goosed. Let's say myself, Eric walks in to you. We have the Hokas on. The running shorts are on. We might even have I'll have a running bib on me because I want to show up me arms and stuff because I have something going for me. What, and in the back of your mind, I haven't said a word to you yet. And let's say you are the type, I'm not saying you are, that is like just guessing you're trying to guess what someone does or like that. You're making assumptions is what I'm trying to get at. What are the common running assumptions? Or what are the common things that happen when someone walks into you in terms of training mistakes, in terms of errors they're doing, just the basics kind of thing before we get a little bit more deeper into that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so like everyone's different and their story is going to be different to them, but there is definitely kind of common themes. And I'm speaking to 30, 40, 50 runners a week, so you'll see the trends that most people do. And probably none of these things are going to be a great shock, but people are still getting injured. So sometimes they just need to keep being repeated and repeated by different voices. And then
absolutely
something lands, and that's my job done. And then you're sitting on, like, because I speak to so many people, you're sitting on the amount of information. So even from a personal thing, I can learn from them, learn good things as well as the bad things or the mistakes so people could do better. One of the big ones, again, not going to be shocking, is just the strength and conditioning. That's either it's not there, it's poor, doing the wrong things, not doing enough of it. It's particularly like if you get someone, maybe they'll come in and they're saying, no, I'm doing this training routine, these things in the gym. Typically it's a bit underloaded, not enough weight, but it's just a bit of a haphazard selection of exercises. If you think like you're going to go to your doctor, you get a blood test and you're deficient in certain things, they're going to give you the meds exactly for those things. So similarly, you might ideally go and see someone like myself, or someone who knows running, and a PT or a physio, they're going to say, all right, your calf on your left side is weaker than the right one, your glute is weaker, your quad is pretty good, you don't need to do much work there. You've actually got things that are specific to you, but then you can actually improve those deficits that are, and rather than just kind of throwing things at the wall and hoping it sticks. That's kind of the big thing from the conditioning point of view.
In terms of just to add on to conditioning, because one thing that's been thrown around a lot now is mobility. So it's not just about conditioning, particularly for us who are living sedentary lives. My job involves sitting in the front of an aircraft. I'm sitting there. I'm sitting then when I'm not in it. I'm sitting 8 hours a day. The only time I'm not sitting is when I maybe go for a run. Mobility is becoming a big factor in a lot of this strength conditioning and mobility. It's becoming a big factor. What does that mean to you, and what are runners missing out on?
There's probably an overemphasis that people come in and think it needs to be all flexibility and I need to use stretches. And the big things is my hamstrings aren't flexible or my hip flexors are tight. Now, if you have a job like yourself and you are sitting 8 hours a day, you might be kind of on the other side of things and actually do need to do a little bit of work there. But if you look at the running action for, as long as we're not sprinting, anything from like 5K to marathon pace, you don't need huge amount of flexibility. You need a little bit around the ankle, or a good bit around the ankle and calf. You need a little bit around the hamstring, but otherwise, like people, again, if we think we're all short on time, I'd rather someone does more gym work, more strengthening than mobility. But you can use the strength for mobility as well. You're doing things like eccentric exercises, or we're doing almost mobility with weights that you're going to get some strengthening and some lengthening of your tissues at the right time. But again, that could be something that you don't need to do. So get it checked out first of all. If you're stiffer in one side than the other, you need the mobility work, then get it done. But otherwise, focus on what you need to do.
Huge generalization here, Enda. But what would be your go-to exercises for people listening that the next session's into the gym? Do you have go-tos you always go to?
Yeah, there's a few that I'd kind of try and get everyone to do. The gyms around Dublin are going to need some new Smith machines, because that's my favorite one for the calves in particular.
Yes.
If you like the amount of weight you need to really strengthen your calves, there's absolutely no way you're going to hold that in a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Whereas if you get into a Smith machine, it's completely locked in. You don't need to control the weight at all. Ideally, you're putting for a double leg calf raise on the edge of a step in the machine. You should be getting up to close to 2 times your body weight for multiple reps for that. And then close-ish to 1 time your body weight for a single leg. So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be holding a 140 kg dumbbell trying to do a calf raise.
Talk to me a little bit more of this, because I've had issues, and I've talked on the podcast for years with calves and Achilles, and I would do a little bit. So I body weights for a couple of reps, and 20 kilo one hand. I'm not holding much more than that for like 5, 6, but no, sorry, a little bit more reps, but not too much. And then I get me stretches in, and I'm like, right, my Achilles is sore. I'm not doing any more than that. I'm moving on to my other stuff. And it never got better. And I moaned about it for years in this podcast, pretty much almost since day one. You can hear me back in 2020 talking about this when no one listened. And then I took 6 weeks off, wedding, all the rest, married. I was like, oh, my Achilles going to be better. No difference. And then I saw something online, was like, no, you need to load it. And then I started doing, like, for example, what you're talking about there, near one time my body weight, on the barbell, calf raises there, dumbbells, more raises, more bounds, more jumps and all the rest. And then 3-4 weeks later, touch wood, I've had little to no Achilles pain. How much, like, are people just chronically underloading when you're like, is that just specific to the calves? The second part of that question.
It's probably most things. It's like tendons. So your Achilles tendon, and any tendon needs load. Same thing if you have a bit of, like, again, generalized diagnosis here, but like a runner's knee, front of your knee, or patella tendon. Really, like, heavy, high strength loads are the only thing that's going to get that better, because they actually like load. They respond to it. If you it's a bit of Goldilocks thing. If you underdo it, it's not going to feel better. You can overdo it as well. That's why you need to build it up gradually. But I get majority of people are underloading, particularly the calves, the Achilles issues. That's why they're so chronic and persistent, and it feels better, but it hasn't actually got any stronger. Then you go back and run in, and you're flaring things up again. And
how little or important is like foam rolling out the calves and stuff, with or without strength training?
I'd put it as kind of around the edges. It's your 5% type stuff. If you're not doing the other things, it's worthless. But if you're on top of everything else, then it can play a little bit of a role, yeah. And then just back to, sorry, you if you were saying about some other exercises, key ones in the gym, do your calf. Then the glute medius is another one. So everyone kind of focuses on the big glute max one, the big backside muscle, and they're there in the gym doing their hip thrusts all day long. But the glute medius is the one that every time you land on one leg, it's going to control the stability of the hips, the pelvis. If you can imagine, your pelvis should be nice and solid. If that's going to start wobbling around every time you land, the more you do that, you'll see that sometimes. Like
that is Eric.
People judge themselves on the race photos a bit too much, but you'll see that sometimes where you get just like a drop on one side of the pelvis. When we do our gait analysis in the clinic, we see that as well. And a lot of that is just like hip strengthening. So that would be things like side planks with a leg lift, split squats, step ups, those kind of things. Those one-legged exercises that really load up the outer hip.
I'm just going to get into a side plank here while you keep talking there.
But stop you sitting all day, Eric.
Seán has been slagging me about, he knows when I get tired because come the end of the race, it's like the hips are just gone left, right, all over the place. I'd probably be a better hula hoop champion than I would be a running champion. But a lot of the things as well, and because we touched on Achilles, what kind of a role is footwear, without naming brands or whatever, but the new carbon plates and everything else, and as Seán mentioned, they're brand names, but any marathon runner, everyone is doing it now. How much of a role are they playing in some of the injuries we're seeing, or is it still coming back to we are not doing the right work outside of the running?
Yeah, I think if we're looking at like all the evidence always lags behind a bit because it takes a few years to do your studies and get the results and everything. So we probably don't have anything really clear about the carbon plates. I would probably, back a few years ago, I might have been a bit more anti them in terms of people running, doing all their training in them. I still don't think that's right because you do lose that little bit of kind of working hard during training if the shoe's doing a bit of the work for you. But if people have certain conditions, so actually like your carbon plate's a very stiff sole. So people with things like maybe Morton's neuroma or plantar fasciitis or like foot conditions might benefit from that rather than say your kind of higher stacked squishy shoe that's just going to compress and your foot works quite hard to stabilize it then. So there definitely is a role for them in some injury issues. But I'd always say something like shoes are tools, so you can manipulate them to your advantage. If you've got that Achilles problem again, you maybe want to run as something that's a little bit higher drop just to take the load off the Achilles. If you've got a knee problem, you might want something a bit lower profile to the ground. Again, just takes the stress from the knee and puts it more towards the calf and the Achilles. So you can use them to your advantage. You can also, if you don't know what you're doing with them, they can influence injuries, definitely.
After 280 odd episodes, probably the stupidest question I've ever asked in a podcast. How do you run? So what I mean by that is getting into running gaits and stuff like that. Is there an overemphasis, underemphasis on these things? Like I know I'm relaxed top end when I'm running and I get the TRX arms and the hands shoot all over the place and all the rest. Is there a right and the wrong way to run?
Yeah, it's a big debate in the kind of physio biomechanics world, and I probably would have been a bit more on the side of no, it doesn't matter. Just make sure the training load is right, make sure your conditioning is right, and you should be good to go. But the more I see people and put them on the treadmill and analyze their form, more courses I do on it, and particularly with people like the recurrent injuries, if they can be true to themselves and they've had the best possible advice, they've done the rehab, and they just keep picking up injuries, the technique side of things can really be that missing part. It's not something people often get done as well. Like I only videoed myself on the treadmill a few months ago for the first time, just because I thought I'm doing it for clients, I better do this as well, just to actually get an idea of things. And just because things look maybe a bit off or they don't look like the perfect textbook technique, it wouldn't mean you need to intervene on it. If you looked at some of the top marathon runners in the world, you'll see them doing some funky stuff. But they've got to the top of the game, and you'd be a braver man than me if you went to intervene and tried to change their technique.
You can always tell a coach who's just starting the business, they're like, oh man, I get Kipchoge, I knock 2 minutes off his time, he just has to do more split squats, his form's not great doing those lunges. Like, it's like, no pal, you don't do that. But looking at yourself then, for did you make any changes to how you ran based on videoing yourself?
Not massively. I think sometimes I get a little bit fatigued again towards the end, and maybe the arms stop moving too well. Certain things are really relatively easy to change, and others are really hard. So I kind of look at what are the big picture things that, again, most people, if they're coming in, we're seeing the again, probably a bad word to use, but the faults or the things that they could be doing better. If you equate it to, say, the golf swing, you take your top 10 golfers in the world, they're all doing a different kind of swing, and it wouldn't be something maybe you'd teach kids growing up. But then they're all doing one thing right. It's getting the club face, the ball square on, because that'll control where the ball goes. The equivalent of that in running for me is if you can land with your foot underneath the knee. So on a slightly flexed knee, your foot is under the knee rather than out in front of the leg. What people do, and I don't know why it's evolved into people to do the less optimum style, but if you can, and people listen to this, maybe they're out for their runs, can do it. If you can imagine that front leg is coming forward, your knees coming up a little bit higher, at some point you're going to have to get your foot down on the ground. So option one, which is most people are doing, is they're kicking that lower leg out. So it's almost a little bit like they're kicking a football, and then they're planting the foot on the ground. The foot is out in front of the knee. If you look at side on, there's a bit of an angle there, but the knee is quite straight. It's almost like the brakes are being applied every time. It takes a lot of force and effort and energy just to roll over that and bounce onto your next stride. Whereas the more optimal thing would be if that knee is coming forward, just lift it a tiny bit higher, and now there's no way you can kick that leg out, otherwise you're falling flat on your face. The only way that foot's coming down to the ground is the foot dropping vertically down into the ground. Your Achilles is a bit of a spring, and then you bounce straight up again and you're rolling on to your next stride. So if you leave, people could even just do that one thing, and that's enough.
How hard is it to make an amendment to your gait? Because a gait is almost like a fingerprint. It's very individual to every. There's software, back when we were studying it, there's software that could actually video you walking and go, that's Enda, based on your gait from walk-in, because it's in a period, it's in a rhythm. How hard is it to change your fingerprint, for want of a better word? How hard is it to start telling the mind, I need to raise my knee a little bit higher? Like you said, even on easy runs, I do think about it and I'm like, okay, try and raise your knees, try and do this. Then my heart rate starts raising, and then I'm like, forget about this. So what way do you do it? And how long is a piece of string? What kind of time frame should people be putting into this to, I suppose, see some progress enough to make a difference?
So that kind of technique that I talked about there, typically you'll see that in people's cadence. So they all kind of magic number of 180 is out the window now, but you certainly want to see someone like 165 and above. I've seen people with 180 cadence and still overstride, so it's not the absolute pinnacle, but usually if you've got a higher cadence, you're going to do that foot landing position a little bit better. So you just work on their cadence. So that would be using, it's soul destroying, but I've done it before in the past after an Achilles injury, where you're using a metronome. You set that to maybe you're coming in at 160 steps per minute on your normal runs. We might set that to 168. So every time your foot hits the ground, or every time there's a beat, your foot should hit the ground. And then your Garmin, the tech can come into our advantage here. That has cadence alerts. You might set that up then a few beats lower and higher. And if it goes below that range, you're going to get a little warning. That's kind of outsourcing it to technology, though, in both counts. So you do still want to have that feeling of like, what does it feel like to have the foot landing underneath you? So every time you're doing that run, you shouldn't just be listening to the beat. You should be in tune with how your body is feeling as well. And there's pretty good evidence that's improving cadence. There's studies that if you've done 1 month of training with just one session, people test it again a year's time and they still have that higher cadence. So it's one of the easier things to implement.
It's one thing to confuse cadence with pace, and it's something that confused me in the early days. It's like, what do you mean my cadence need to be fat? Now I understand cadence, but at the time it was like, how can I increase cadence without moving faster? As in increasing the rate at which I'm turning over. And that is what you're doing. You're turning over your legs quicker, but maintaining pace and effort. It is harder than it sounds on paper when you first try and wrap your head around it, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and that's where the treadmill come in quite useful. Even if you can spend 30 minutes on the treadmill, just do that. You would only do this for your easy runs as well. If someone's doing a workout or a long run, I'd just let them at it. But if you're you're running 5 times a week and you might have 3 easy runs, then at least a couple of them on the treadmill, or if you're doing it outdoors as well. And even then you might just tune into that feeling and the metronome beat for 5 minutes, then turn it off for a minute, dial back in again. The more you do that, it does become a bit more natural. But if people are struggling and end up going a little bit faster, all you're doing is increasing the stride length rather than the cadence, really. So treadmill is probably the way to go if you're struggling.
And this is a case of, I know some people say put the treadmill on a 1 degree incline can help with the foot strike thing, or are you just to keep it on 0 and go for it, or what way would it work in terms of the setup? Because again, even though you're describing it so well, there's probably people going, I still don't know what you want me to do. Is it an exaggerated knee rise and then letting it come down, but just doing that a little bit quicker. So say we set our pace to 10, say that's our easy run, and we start as we normally do, and then we transition to, okay, I'm going to raise my knees a little bit higher. That's going to cause my foot to fall underneath me, and just try and up the tempo of that without touching the speed. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly, yeah. Don't go near the speed at all. Get used to that kind of quicker turnover at your easy speed. The 1% thing there, that's one of the old myths that's persisted in running for quite a long time.
It's a myth.
Often, but no need to do that. It's just making things a little bit harder on yourself.
Yeah, well, I always judge on it. As soon as I put that 1% in, it gets harder. So I always put it back to 0 straight away.
Bringing this all in, and because just Eric was talking about the fingerprint there and the running gait and all the rest. And if you're landing on, let's say you said you kick the leg out and you're landing the inside of the foot too much, people just get runners that have that make sure you don't overpronate and stuff. Is that just putting a band-aid in the problem? And when I know you do running gait analysis, is it a case of it is just in the knee down, or does the hips and all come into what way your running stride is? Because I've seen some of them it's just analysing like the ankle, the foot, and the land, and not looking at anything else. Do you need to look at other things, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, so probably without generalising, I think your shops are going to be looking from the knee and the foot down because they're selling you a pair of shoes. Whereas I'm going to be looking at the whole body, so from front and behind. We're looking, again, you get into the nuts and bolts of it. Someone who's maybe kind of quite good, they're on top of everything. They just want really a performance improvement. We might be looking at the real minuscule things like how much you're bouncing up and down, your trunk lean. They're a little bit too advanced for kind of just people getting into it, and basics really come from the hips down. So it's looking at are we getting that kind of hip drop that we mentioned earlier? Are we getting a knee collapsing in on one side? You'd be surprised amount of people, if you look at them from behind and video them, they're running on like a complete tightrope, the center line, the treadmill, the left leg's over on the right hand side when it lands, and vice versa.
Oh, wow.
And that's what's given a lot of kind of outer hip type symptoms and pain. And then you're looking at, knee landing angle and foot position as well. The footwear stuff and the stability shoes, I'd be a fan of them with certain people. Because there's only so much conditioning you can do as well. If someone's got that technique and it's bedded in after years, you can get as strong as you want, but you could still be rolling in on your foot. But then some people who technically, again, I don't like using the word, but overpronate, they'll actually respond better in a normal shoe than a stability one as well. So it really is kind of there's no one size fits all approach for that.
Do you have people that, I don't know why I'd be saying this, but like that kind of like drag their feet when they run and like somehow drag their feet and stomp really hard? They've accused of by co-hosts the podcast as well. Like just out of curiosity.
All sorts, yeah.
It's like a stampede of elephants.
Is there a case of stomping too hard and not getting your feet off the ground at the same time?
Yeah, it's interesting when you see people, and like, again, people will have fantastic results with certain techniques that you might not think are really kind of top end. And again, I wouldn't really change it unless they're coming in with an injury or with something glaringly obvious that's related to the pain they're coming in with. They could be coming in with a hip thing and they're doing something with their foot that looks like it's not related at all. Then it's treat the hip and get them back running. Don't worry too much about the small stuff like that.
Not to scare people in the middle of marathon programs, stuff like that, but I know me and Eric have learned the most out of our countless mistakes we've made. Eric, I'm throwing you in with me in this one. I know you program people as well through your physio knowledge, running plans, stuff like that, and your running solutions. What are the common mistakes you see people making in running plans, and how do you approach it?
Yeah, so I think at the minute it's a big kind of the push towards like certain running apps, and Garmin will do plans and AI generated plans. And that's really kind of, you put your into a search engine, you're going to get your marathon plan. It's going to say you're running 4, 5, 6 times a week. You get a tempo session, a threshold or interval. You're going to get a long run that starts at 20K and it builds up every 2K every week, and you get to 32. And that's what it spits out to most people. And there's a lot of people that won't work for. If you think of your maybe more novice, newer runner, somebody who doesn't have the strength conditioning, probably the same person who's maybe not so in tune with running off feel and is overrunning, putting too much effort into their easy runs. I see a lot of people like that who will come in, and the emphasis is so much on the long run that they're doing maybe at this stage, say building up to Dublin, their last couple of weeks might be they've done a 24 or 26, 28. They've overran it. They've probably not fueled, which you might come on to in a second. They then take 3 or 4 days to recover from that. So they've missed their Monday run. They've maybe not been able to hit their Tuesday workout because they're struggling still with fatigue from that. They might do a little bit of an easy run down on a Wednesday or Thursday, and then it's all gearing up towards the long run again the following weekend, which is a little bit longer. Same process happens 3 or 4 weeks time. Eventually they're having to skip most of those midweek runs, so you're getting like this big overdose of running at the weekend, and you're taking almost a full week to recover from it then.
I missed my Monday run yesterday. Talk to me about long run fueling before we get deeper into this.
Yeah, so like that's again, looking at these common mistakes that people come in with. Fueling's a massive thing. Under fueling, under hydrating, particularly on the long runs, you're going to pay for that really short term. You're just going to feel the rest of the day. You're going to maybe struggle with your training for the next week. Medium term, you're just going to struggle to get through the marathon block or a big training block without picking up niggles, injuries. You're going to just feel really run down. You're not going to be able to do the type of training you want to do. You'll probably underperform. And then in the worst case scenarios, it's going to have pretty negative health consequences if you're under fueling during the training and then outside of your training as well. You're looking at injury issues like bone stress injuries, stress fractures, pretty serious stuff that's going to both put you out of marathons and it might jeopardize your running in future. So like the fueling is a massive thing. And that's probably what I learned a little bit from the triathlon side of things. You see the top guys in that and they're pushing like, I know it's on a bike, it's a bit easier, like 200 grams of carbs an hour. I'm not saying people need to take that, but really we should be looking at like the old thing was 60, you talk about 90 an hour. But if you think like you'll know yourself, you go out for a run, you're taking your gels in, you're going to spill some on yourself, you're going to spill some, you're going to leave some in the packet. You're not going to even absorb all of that as well. So you go out and you think you've taken 60 per hour, you're probably taking 45. So if you can get yourself up to 90 to 100, you're probably actually getting in and absorbing 70, 80 grams then.
And how important is the fueling immediately before and 12 to 24 hours before? But talking about long runs right now as opposed to the marathon, because that's what a lot of people be doing. So how important is that fueling, or is it?
Yeah, massive. Yeah. So if you think your classic Sunday morning long run, the plan for that should start the day before. If you're doing something like maybe a race pace workout, you've got some bigger blocks of marathon stuff, you're almost, and I'd try and get people to do this once or twice, simulate what you're going to have before the 2 days before the race to practice the carb load. Not every long run needs to do that, but you still need to be having substantial dinner the night before, plenty of carbs. That morning you're getting some in as well. You're up a couple of hours before the run. You're getting, for me, it's bagels, bananas, jam, but it could be cereals, Rice Krispies, Frosties, whatever you want to get into yourself, bread, jam, all the stuff that might not come across as particularly healthy, but we just want that quick acting sugars to get in rather than maybe like your porridge oats or your more kind of quote unquote healthier stuff. Save that for maybe afterwards. And then just that window after the long run as well. So there's good evidence as well, first 2 or 3 hours, if you can refuel well there with protein and carbs, then the recovery is going to be so much quicker than if you just delay that. Maybe you're busy with the kids, you're forgetting to eat until like 3 o'clock that afternoon after a long run. You're probably raving the fridge all night then in that case.
Yep, felt that too.
I do that even when I'm not busy. When it comes to, we've talked a lot about gait and gait analysis, and then talking about the transition then into triathlon, because a lot of the time cycling, swimming can complement running really, really well. And is that something you found? If so, what are some of the theories behind that, and why is that a lot of people say, and it's something that has been said to me, that running will never translate into cycling, but cycling can always translate into running.
Yeah, I don't think it's really from a pure technique or anything. It's just that thing we talked about earlier, that cardio stimulus that you're going to get just stronger in the legs on the bike. That can only help the running as well. Whereas running's not really great at building strength. So you're probably not going to see that. Like running well is not going to make you get up a hill on a bike any quicker. But if you can do some hill training on the bike, you're probably going to have stronger legs for the run then.
And how did you find then overall then triathlon versus running? Has the bug for triathlon caught you? Has it done a lot for you in terms of, or is it just an Ironman is a lot of commitment? But from what you've seen and what you enjoy, what was the triathlon scene like for you?
It's great, yeah. Like I'm still definitely, if I was to choose one of them, it's running all day long. But I'm getting more into. I definitely love the biking as well. Swimming's a work in progress. When you don't kind of do it as a child and try and take it up, then it's always a bit of a slog. But it's just like sometimes you have to challenge yourself, do things you're not that comfortable with, and you're going to get better over time as well. It'd been something like that if people were taking that up. just getting into a club. Like I'm an Ace Triathlon club, and they're brilliant. Like you meet people of all abilities, inspiring stories. Particularly if you have a leg or a sport in it that you're not that good with, you'll get in, you'll train with people, they'll make you better, and there's only improvements to be made from that.
You've Ironman on your belt?
Yeah.
How'd you on? Where was it?
It was Klagenfurt, Austria. It was great.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Reasonably hilly bike, but I'm pretty light, so that was good for me. And the swim was just in a picture-perfect lake. My one requirement was go somewhere with warm water because I can't deal with kind of cold water at all. So it's like 22-degree lake.
You're speaking to me now. That's the one thing that's put me off. Any sort of cold. I was in down the road, Nace Treehouse, and the other day, just after the long run. Man, that cold, not even the cold one, the normal one. I barely last a minute, and by a minute I was like from knees down. My ankles feel like they're gonna fall off. So nice warm weather lake is appealing to me. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, you just don't want to be too close for comfort though, and end up getting one where there's a non-wetsuit swim if it's too hot. So it's always a little bit dodgy with that as well.
I need the sea swims, even though they're sea monsters. The salt water just helps me stay afloat. So it's definitely one. The lake is just too hard. I can't do it. It's definitely.
Is it that much difference?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Buoyancy in the water. The lake is probably even the more dangerous one to swim in general. That's probably where most accidents happen and life-saving training is different. It's just denser water. It's just it's completely different salt. Like it's like the Black Sea. If you lie on your back, you actually can't sink physically because of all the salt, the buoyancy.
Yeah, but it's not as cold.
We need a Black Sea. We won't have to swim at all then.
Oh man! And then from a physio perspective, cycling, swimming, complementing the running. When we talk about cross training, and it's something that people hear, and thanks to CrossFit, they probably think it's CrossFit. But in terms of cross training, what does that mean, and how can we best utilize cross training in any kind of marathon plan or long distance or endurance or even 5K, 10K plans?
Yeah, so I'd be looking at that separate to like your strength conditioning is one thing, your cross training is purely your aerobic exercise. And then it's becoming more popular probably with like high rocks and things like your skier, your rower. I would class that as cross training as well. A bit like what I said earlier about just like randomly picking things to work, exercises and things to work on though. There can be some cross training, some machines that might not be appropriate if you've got maybe an upper hamstring injury and then you decide, right, I can't really run, so I'm just going to sit on the exercise bike here for 90 minutes, 2 hours. The hamstring is going to be pretty annoyed with you at that point. You might need something that's maybe actually your cross trainer might be a better option there, something that you're not putting as much stress on it. Similar with maybe the rowing machine, like your knees might not enjoy that so much, so maybe the bike's a better thing there. So it is, again, no one size fits all for that. You have to choose your exercise accordingly. And then the stimulus is a bit different as well. So if you were to replace your easy 30-minute run, you're probably needing to be doing 45 minutes to an hour on the bike to get the same aerobic benefit. You can still go easy. You don't need to kill yourself on it, but it just requires that little bit more time.
This is a very personal question. I've been reduced. So the bike broke here. There's one treadmill working, a Stairmaster, and an elliptical that's on its last legs. So I got on the Stairmaster the other day for 30 minutes. And for a man whose hips move every which way at the end of a marathon, I found it really tough. I did 40 minutes and I could not walk this morning. How good are they in terms of those of us who maybe lack in the glute strength and conditioning, ellipticals for cross training, Stairmasters for cross training? Are we going to see the same benefit from them? I know what you said. It's what are we deficit in, but are we going to see benefits from them kind of machines as well?
Yeah, there's rarely going to be a downside unless it's something that's actually making you sore. I think even though your legs will feel beat up from the Stairmaster, you're probably not, or you're definitely not going to get the same stimulus from that as say you do in your strength training. So you still need your heavy weights, but you're going to get a cardio benefit. You're going to get a sweat on, your heart rate's up. So think of it as cardio, even though like your legs will feel really beat up after it. The cross trainer is probably the one that mimics running the most. So if you can get on that and it's not an exercise you need to be, or not an injury that need to be non-weight bearing or anything, it's a really good option as well.
You mentioned easy there, starting to go talking about the bike and stuff like that, and you talked about this earlier, but we can get into it. RPE rather than pace. So you said there, like easy on a bike might have to double the time they're running for a 30-minute easy run. How easy is easy on RPE for a run?
For me, I'm trying to get people to run, I think, 2 is probably unrealistic. It's I don't know if I've ever graded a run as 2 myself, but definitely 3 or 4. If you're going above 4, then realistically you're kind of going above that first aerobic heart rate threshold. You're starting to become a little bit less conversational. So again, everyone's perceptions of numbers are a bit different, but really like 3 and 4 should be easy, conversational. And then the more time you spend at that, the more comfortable you'll get with it. But again, going back to people I would see coming in and they're maybe thinking they're running easy, and then you get a look at their heart rates on their Garmin and they're like 180 and it was supposed to be an easy run, and you ask them, well, how did that feel? It's like, show them a scale, it's like 6, 7 out of 10. If that's the case, your easier ones, you've got nowhere to go then. For your interval stuff, you're going to have to work them 10 out of 10, and then that's like injury written all over that.
In terms of pace, Norpeed, and how does the easy compared to the long run? Because do you want the conversational pace, and with time the heart rate will obviously creep up, but is there a case to be made that there's some people are talking about their long runs are almost too slow and there needs to be a block in the long run? Let's say you're doing 20 maths makes maths easy from your head, like 15k, the middle 5k is marathon pace. Is there a case for that for different levels, or what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, definitely for your more experienced runner, someone who's maybe done a marathon before, they've been training for 6 months or a year or longer, they can tolerate doing a bit more on the long runs, and really to get some gains, they're going to have to, they can't just do 12 weeks of a slow plod every Sunday and really improve. It probably will improve because it's just time in their feet, but they're going to leave some gains on the table. Whereas maybe the more first timer or more inexperienced, someone coming back from an injury, they really should just be doing it nice and easy and conversational for the whole of the long runs. Usually you'll see people coming down, their easy pace is quicker than the marathon pace, so it just doesn't make sense then.
Taking those nuances in you just said there, and let's say someone's listening to the podcast and they are going AI or Chat GPT, because that's the obvious one now that a lot of people would use. I've said, you know what, Enda said there that AI doesn't take this into account, but I've heard him talk about easy runs and I've heard him talk about long runs now. I'm going to prompt that into ChatGPT. I'm going to prompt in intervals. I'm going to prompt in easy 4 out of 10, and this is my pace and stuff. Where does AI, or does AI still get it wrong?
It probably gets a bit better if you did it like that, yeah. And if you're really true to yourself and like really kind of put in what your current paces and abilities and maybe previous race results are, then I'm sure you'd probably get something that's maybe aligns with you. But it can also then, like, it's one thing telling you to run at 6.5 minute pace, you're easy, or 7 minute pace. But if you've been used to running at 6, sticking to it's another thing as well.
Yeah, cause it's constantly changing what you can and can't do, and you're not going to be every day putting in, well, ChatGPT, I felt maybe you do actually, I don't know. But is there some things where you see, like I know on my end with the strength conditioning, I for the crack put in a program, and it is like a beginner program for whatever it is for getting strong and stuff like that. And next thing I see like 16, 20 sets on quads, and I'm like, someone doesn't need that, or 4 or 5 different exercises on chest. It's like, they're a beginner. Do they really need that volume? And it's not there yet. Now, if I prompt it a little bit more, I might get a little bit better. Is there some of those things you've maybe heard of talking to people running on that happens with?
Yeah, like you'll see people with maybe, again, it's a marathon plan, but it's like there's loads of fast 200s, hard as you can, fast 400s. There can be a time and place for them if you're working on trying to improve your VO2 max, but like they shouldn't really be going on throughout the program. They should be like, you're working on your threshold, your tempo paces. You're spending some time in that kind of old demonized zone 3 because your marathon pace is in that area. So you don't particularly want to like not use that as well. You just have to have like a little bit of most of your easy stuff, and then sprinkle some of the zone 3, some zone 4. And if you really want some high stimulus, you're doing like 10, 15 second maybe repeats at your top end pace, not like 20, 200s.
And if we're giving you a magic wand and it's going to remove 50 clients from a week of yours, it's detrimental to your business. But how much strength and conditioning should a runner be doing on 3 kind of levels? A beginner to medium to, is there a difference between the levels of runner, and how often should we start to look at, okay, 2, 3 times a week we need to start introducing some exercises, or getting in touch with you about plans to introduce our coaches or whatever it is we're working with?
Yeah, I don't really see a difference between, like, say, novice, intermediate, expert. The only difference might be if the expert's been doing a bit longer, they're lifting heavier weights or doing maybe tougher exercises. But like kind of, I would say gold standard, you want to be doing 2 sessions a week. And that can change throughout, say, a marathon build where ideally before you even get into your 16, 20 marathon, 20 week block, you're laying this base layer of kind of the heavy strength training, your squats, deadlifts, lunges, those calf raises. And then as your training ramps up, then you can tweak that down a bit. You don't want to be doing your heavy stuff right in the middle of the long runs and the hard workouts as well. So you can pare that back and then make things a little bit lighter. You might focus on power, speed, plyometrics. And then like your marathon, you're going to taper your strength training as well. So maybe 4 or 6 weeks out, you start to dial it down. You might do 1 session a week proper and then 1 kind of light, easy session, or you take away 1 or drop the volume out of 1. But as a kind of a blanket rule, if you're doing 2 sessions a week during the most of the season, you might potentially maybe do 3 sessions during an off season or something.
And if someone's listening along and they like what you're saying, they're like, this man, not only has he got a physio background, he also walks the walk, he's done Ironmans, he's done 241s. What is Running Solutions? And you do provide stuff online as well.
Yeah, so it's we're based in Premier Physiotherapy in Valencia. It's a long-standing clinic, it's been there about 20 years. And there was a little bit of a running element to it before I joined. I started about 2 years ago and just wanted to make it a place where anyone can come for running. So like obviously the bread and butter is I'm a physio, so people are going to come to me for injuries. Usually if you're injured, you're unhappy. So it's a long day if I'm speaking to unhappy people all the time. I just much prefer your baby bit people are a bit proactive. And even if they've downloaded that ChatGPT plan, they come and say, look, this is what it's given me. Is it appropriate? Should I do anything different? Can you test me out? Is my strength training correct? Maybe you want to have a look at the treadmill, the gait assessment as well. We just want to come in for a chat about, I'm starting a marathon, I've never done it before, what would you suggest? And then we might see you maybe just even once a month during that whole marathon build, just to make sure you're on track, answer any questions. But it's really just a whole comprehensive, like a complete running clinic that you can get all your information under one door instead of going to multiple different people or trying to search online and getting the wrong information.
And where's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
Got our Instagram page, Premier Physiotherapy, and if you Google us as well, you can give us a call and book in. And like I said there earlier, a lot of this stuff can be done online. Sometimes you need some physical stuff to assess an injury, but if it's coming for a chat and you're down the country, you can book in for an online assessment as well. You can even do a gait analysis online if you can get me some good quality video footage from the gym.
Does it work on a Stairmaster in Mozambique, Eric?
Oh, watch out. It's magical.
Well, I'll be doing it if it works out for you.
Oh, well, I'll give it a go. I've done 1 day and already I want to quit. I couldn't walk today. I was in a heap. But it's, look, it's something I have to do because someone was on the elliptical, so I had no choice. But it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. It's great to get the insights and the little nuggets that we can all bring into our long runs. And for those who are listening and those who are looking for the percentages, or maybe carrying injuries in from training block to training block, maybe it's time to try something new and have those kind of conversations with you, Enda, which is brilliant. And thanks so much for sharing. And we do wish you the very best. Are you training for Dublin currently? I'm
not doing it this year, actually, no. Last year went so well that I was like, I'll just give it a miss.
Nah, we'll leave it there. You're dead right, Enda.
Got a half Ironman instead coming up. That'll keep me busy for a while.
Excellent. So the triathlon bug continues with Naas Triathlon Club, and we wish all them well down there in Naas. And for us, that's all we have for this week with Enda. For those, we will put them in the show notes or any extra information of where and when to find Enda. And we wish you all the best in the half Ironman, and we hope maybe we'll see you on again when Seán gets injured again. We'll try and fix more of his problems.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. So myself, Enda, and Eric, take care.